Welcome to Season 3, Episode 7 of the Sports Corner Podcast. My name is Nick. I'm joined, as always, by my great friend Steven. And tonight we're going to be breaking down Week 2 of the NCAA season, as well as a little bit of Week 1 of the NFL season. We're excited you're here. We're going to talk about some helmet stickers, some winners and losers from the week. We'll put an eye on Tennessee. We'll pick 5 matchups from this week. We'll go a little bit outside the stadium, back to a previous story we touched before, and we'll end up on our Mount Rushmore of date night venues for eating, because we know and we understand that it's football season and you're using a lot of your credit with your significant other to watch football for a lot of time on Saturday and Sunday. And so you need to treat them well by taking them out to eat. We're going to help you out with that with a couple of locations that you can do that. All that and more on the Sports Corner Podcast tonight. Steven, how are you?
It was a rough weekend for me, but I'm recovering.
Okay.
You know, a couple days out, recovering. Fantasy football looked good this week for one team and not so much for the rest.
I think I went 0-3. I think I'll go 0-3.
I'm staring 1-3 in the face. I'm in 4 leagues, which is way too many for the record.
Here's the yeah. I'm only in 3, thankfully, but here's the problem. Like, one of those leagues, I don't know. There's only like 4 of us that have played football before, and the person that I'm playing in week 1 was like, I'm just gonna pick people based on their uniforms, and they're smoking me. So cool, man.
Well,
and then in another league, I'm playing against King Camper, and this is his first year to ever play, and he picked Tom Brady in round 2, and he's smoking me. So cool.
Well, I'm playing in a league where, full disclosure for anybody that's in that fantasy league where King is and some of the other guys on the Political Hacks podcast, I've had a very busy week at work, and so I ended up playing a guy that apparently was out with COVID. I had no idea. So that's
solid.
I got a solid 0. However, in another league, I played a guy who was perfectly healthy, projected to score 14 to 16 points, and he got none. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he died on the way to the stadium. I have no idea. But
One can hope. One can hope.
But that's enough about that. We will have a fantasy segment at some point, or a fantasy show,
but not tonight.
Maybe even.
We'll get some of those guys on from the Political Hacks fantasy league. Maybe get Face on and talk NFL and talk fantasy for us. Sure. Because they know a lot more about it than I do, that's for sure. They had a great episode breaking down that draft, by the way. If anyone's in that league and hasn't listened to it, be sure to check that out.
They roasted me.
Well, did you go back and listen? Did they really?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, nice. Figures. All right, so let's get into it, though.
Win it after that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Let's get into it. Week 2 of the college football season is in the books. Week 1 of the NFL season has, I guess, 1 game left to go playing right now. And so it's been a great time for football. Let's jump into some helmet stickers for this week. How do you want to do this? You want to start? You want me to start?
Lead us out, my friend.
All right. The first helmet sticker I'm going to give out is to the cat catchers. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yes.
Yes.
The Hard Rock Cat.
Yes. So this is probably the best part of the Miami Appy State game from this weekend. But there was this part of the evening where all eyes in the stadium were up in the upper rafters watching this poor cat. And I have to admit, I'm a dog guy, not a cat guy, but even I don't want to see a cat in trouble. This poor cat, like, hanging by its claws from the upper deck, about to fall. And everyone's, like, freaking out. And there's people that are up top that are, like, trying to reach down and get it, but the cat keeps slipping and getting out of the way. And it's just this intense moment where everyone's like, "Whoa, whoa." It's like great videos, and eventually the cat falls, and it's like, and it falls into the awaiting, outstretched, Old Glory American flag on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and they're able to catch this cat, and their fans and the whole stadium is elated, and there's cheering, and there's applause, and it was just a great moment. So, got to give a helmet sticker to these fans that were Johnny on the spot, got the flag ready, and then made the catch. There were, that's a better catch than we saw on the field in a lot of that game. So, kudos to them. No one wanted to see a cat go squishy during the football game. At least probably not most people.
Well, cats always land on their feet, though.
I don't know. I would imagine that it could have landed on its feet, but after falling 90 to 100 feet, it still would go splatty splat.
That's fair. My first helmet sticker goes on an actual helmet.
Okay.
Because I understand how this segment works. Sam Howell, quarterback for UNC. You were a little harsh on him last week.
He underperformed.
He had a nice bounce back week against a slightly lesser opponent in Georgia State. Although Georgia State did beat Tennessee a couple of years ago.
Well, honestly, who hasn't in the last couple of years?
Low blow there, but fair. After starting the season as a Heisman hopeful, Howell struggled against Virginia Tech, going 17 of 32 for 208 yards with 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. That is not good. On Saturday, Howell was both the leading passer and rusher for the Tar Heels. He was 21 of 29 for 352 yards and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. And he added 104 yards and 2 more touchdowns on only 11 carries. So not ready to anoint him the favorite by any means, but race is far from over. He's going to have chances down the stretch to prove that he belongs in that conversation, and Saturday put him back on track.
Definitely saw a lot of quarterbacks who struggled in week 1, some Heisman contenders come out and have a solid week 2, many of them against some inferior competition, but still, they went out and did what they had to do, so that is impressive. So speaking of quarterbacks and deserving a helmet sticker, I'll put one on an actual helmet, and that's for Florida's backup quarterback. Now, it seems like every year Florida has a backup quarterback who is
their best player,
is somehow better than the starter, best guy on the team, worthy of all consideration. Now, usually we make that discovery when Florida lines up against Tennessee, and that's when that person gets the anointing of the amazingness Heisman contender that they are. However, this year,
walk on.
Yeah, exactly. This year, however, Florida did not have to wait to the Tennessee game to make this discovery. They had a backup quarterback by the name of Anthony Richardson. I believe he is a redshirt sophomore, although that didn't make it in my notes, so I could be wrong about that. But definitely an underclassman, and he got some playing time in the first game against Florida Atlantic, and he only went 3 for 8 through the air for 40 yards. That wasn't great, but he had 160 rushing yards on just 7 carries. So he had some explosiveness there. But even if that, Emory Jones was the undisputed starter. He's an upperclassman. He's a returning, fifth-year senior. I mean, he's just a fourth-year senior maybe. But he was just the guy, right? At no point did we ever consider that Florida might have a quarterback battle on their hands. This was just a done and decided thing, and this backup was just getting a little bit of playing time. Well, then comes week 2 against South Florida. His rushing, although great in the first game, it did carry over. It stayed great. This time he rushed for 4 attempts for 115 yards. It's not a bad average of rushes there. However, through the air, he went 3 for 3 for 2 touchdowns and 152 yards. So it's interesting. Emory Jones, who I mentioned, who had been the undisputed starter, was 14 for 22, 151 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Looks to me like they have another backup who is outperforming the starter, and I'm kind of curious. Do we see Richardson get the start this coming week when Florida has to play the Alabama Crimson Tide? What do you think? He's going to get the start?
I say no. On that long touchdown run he had, he pulled up limping at the end.
I saw that, but
that will carry over or not.
I was kind of hoping that was just like a cramp, though.
I will disagree with you. I've said to anybody that will listen for the last few years that Emory Jones is hot garbage. He is awful. Don't know why everybody raves about him. They keep trying to make him a thing. They keep every offseason, it's like, Emory Jones, this is the year. And he keeps getting beat out by random guys that have okay seasons, but if he is some amazing superstar, he would have beaten out Felipe Franks and Kyle Trask and not be in controversy now with he's a redshirt freshman, for the record. I looked it up for you.
Oh, redshirt freshman. Okay.
I doubt Richardson starts this weekend because that's just stupid to start him against Alabama. I think he gives you the best chance to win, but I also don't think you do that to a guy. I guarantee you that if he doesn't start, I guarantee you plays more than Emory Jones against Tennessee, and he will look like the superstar that he seems to be.
Now, I don't disagree with you that Emory Jones is not. I don't think he's a talented quarterback. I'm just saying, if you go back and read every sporting magazine or break down,
no, I agree with you. I'm just saying
he was the non-disputed starter.
No, yes,
I'm fine
for sure.
With that.
For sure. Everybody's he's had his time waiting. Now it's his turn. I'm like, why? What has he done to deserve this? He's done nothing. He's not good.
Well, I
And
do think you're right that starting Anthony Richardson against Alabama seems like a bad idea, especially if there's a lingering injury. Now, I'm hoping that that was just like a cramp thing. It was hot and humid, so hopefully he's fine. But even if he is healthy, I think probably starting him against Bama is not a great thing to do to the poor lad. I think you can look to the rest of the season and say if we keep him healthy, get him a little bit more. And I think he will play against him. I think they're going to put him in some
yeah,
different lineups, let him run the ball a little bit, do things like that. But if for some reason this game looks even remotely like it's within them being able to make a win in this, you got to put your best guy in there, right? So I say put him in and see what can happen. Maybe crazier things have happened, and we've seen Alabama struggle against mobile quarterbacks. So just saying, I'm
maybe.
just saying. All right, you got
Maybe.
another winner for us or another helmet sticker? I
I
mean,
do. I have two more, so I'll
all
just
right,
go
you give
back
us
to
your
back here.
yep.
I will start with a headset sticker tonight,
Okay,
or I
you're
guess
not starting
not
because
start,
we're
but
like 5 in, but it's cool.
well, I mean, I'm going back to back. So my first one here
Okay.
is Sam Pittman. So he is the coach at Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
He made my weekend rather rough. So listen, Arkansas may not be a good team this season. Okay, they may not, but they were awesome Saturday night against Texas. Right? They ran the ball for 333 yards at a 7.1 yard per carry clip. The talent on the Texas team defensively is in their front seven, and they got gashed.
Yeah.
Quarterback KJ Jefferson was 14 of 19 for 138 yards and one touchdown. He didn't look like he could throw the ball. I have no idea why they never made him throw the ball. Kendall Briles is the offensive coordinator for Arkansas. He runs the veer and shoot that he and his father, Art Briles, put together that gave the Big 12 nightmares whenever they were running on their high streak there at Baylor before, Art Briles got in trouble for doing all the shady stuff Art Briles did. But it looked like the same offense that gave Texas fits for years at Baylor. And once he figured out that, the veer and shoot, when you don't have to shoot, you can just veer because you're getting it 7.1 yards per carry,
Yeah.
just keep doing it. So, I'm not sure if this is one of those special games where they came out, everything was right. It was a night game in Fayetteville, old Southwest Conference opponent was back. Maybe it was that, or maybe it was a sign of what's to come. Arkansas definitely looked like a threat in the West the other night, albeit against a very young Texas team. But still, many people questioned the hire at the time, but Pittman absolutely looks like the right guy to lead Arkansas.
Well, he's gotten probably the program's biggest win in the last, I don't know, 8 or 10 years. So, yeah, it is a young Texas team. Sark definitely doesn't have the players in place that he wants to yet, but there's no denying that practically everyone that I saw pick that game from amateur to professional was picking Texas in that game. And so maybe that was motivation. Like you said, maybe they were just extra hyped up for it. Whatever the case, huge kudos to Arkansas coaching staff, players, execution, all of that stuff. And now Texas has to decide, how do we respond to this? We just got punched in the mouth. Do we stay down or do we learn from this going into Big 12 play?
You'll find out a lot about Sark in the next couple weeks, I think. Now they get Rice this weekend. That's
Hey, take the
that's
tune up. It's their
yeah,
first.
and
It's
then
their first real gimme game, though.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
kudos
it's
to
true.
Sark, and
They
like this schedule is probably in place before he got there. But kudos
yeah,
to Texas for scheduling some more difficult games.
yeah, and they go to Rice and they get TCU. They announced today that they are making a switch at quarterback. Casey Thompson will start. I think that's the wrong decision. I don't think Hudson Card did anything in that game that deserved a benching. Maybe that benching comes with the idea of, hey, you're going to sit and watch it Rice this week because it's Rice. And then when we get to TCU, you're going to be our guy again. But we'll see how that plays out. My final helmet sticker, back on a helmet. Stetson Bennett the fourth,
Hmm.
quarterback at Georgia, I think, or he might be a partner at a law firm. Can't really, confirm either or. He's absolutely destined for that, right?
I,
Stetson Bennett the fourth.
I think he and Sam Howell will open up a law firm together because I feel like that's also a bit of a lawyer name.
Hal Bennett the fourth, and we'll find another one later.
Yeah.
Bennett was the starter last year for the Bulldogs while JT Daniels was recovering from injury, and Bennett got the nod again on Saturday in Daniels' absence. He has a strained oblique, which is quite worrisome. That's a lingering kind of deal.
Hmm.
Um, He had a decent day, I guess. He was 10 of 12 for 288 yards and 5 touchdowns in the first half. So, yeah, 10 of 12, 5 touchdowns. Half of his completions were touchdowns.
That's impressive.
It gets better. Here's how he started the game. A 73-yard touchdown pass number 1. Pass number 2 is a 10-yard completion. Then a 12-yard touchdown pass. Pass number 4, 89-yard touchdown pass. And then pass number 5 was a 61-yard touchdown pass. So if you could count there, he opened 5 of 5, 245 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So if you were curious, that's a passer efficiency rating of 782.3.
Okay.
The career leader in that rating for a season, it's one game, but the career leader in that first season is Tua at 199.4.
So this is slightly better.
Yes, so 782.3 will significantly skew the rest of his numbers for the season.
No doubt.
They won 56-7. Not that it matters. They played UAB. UAB scored a touchdown better than Clemson did.
That's true. There's no doubt about it that Georgia is just playing on another level right now. And I think one of the question marks with Georgia year in, year out is, can they keep that momentum going? Can they keep that up? And so we've got a lot of football left to play. We'll see. But my goodness, talk about, we've seen several teams come out and underperform against some of these cupcake teams or against whatever they have coming up first and second. But not Georgia, man. They're rolling. All right, let's jump into our winners and our losers. I will start us off here with my first winner is Oregon. Huge game between Oregon and Ohio State. I have to say, I think in week 1 in my pick'ems, I went and did really well. Week 2, slightly less well because I picked Ohio State over Oregon and I picked Texas over Arkansas, so I definitely lost those two. I fully admit I did not expect Oregon to be able to hang with Ohio State. And in all fairness, neither did the odds maker. I was not alone in that prediction. You were not alone in that prediction. Oregon came in ranked 12th, but they were a 15-point underdog in this game against Ohio State. And in fairness, Ohio State, statistically speaking, had an impressive game. Their stats, if you just looked at them on their own, indicated that they would have come away with the win. Oh, by the way, I didn't know this until I was reading about it this afternoon, but that was Ryan Day's first ever regular season loss. He is 23-1 in regular season games, and as someone in chat just mentioned, Dewey in chat just mentioned, anytime Ohio State loses, it's a good day. And I cannot refute that logic. I enjoyed seeing a video of a duck hanging out at midfield after the game. But let's look at some of these stats real quick. CJ Stroud had 484 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. That's a pretty incredible stat line. That's a stat line that you would expect to see from the winning quarterback. They also had a team total of 128 rushing yards as well as another rushing touchdown. And 3 different receivers had over 100 yards. That's pretty impressive stats. I mean, those guys lit it up. One thing we talked about in the Big Ten breakdown in the preseason and after their Week 1 game was that Ohio State is full of some really talented, skilled players. They're just good. There's no denying it. But it wasn't good enough in this matchup against Oregon. Oregon proved to be too much, especially on the ground. The Ducks rushed for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns, the most rushing yards Ohio State has allowed since 2018. Oregon also added 236 yards through the air to 11 different receivers who all had at least 1 catch and 10 or more yards. And perhaps most importantly, Oregon did not turn the ball over. They just played clean football, whereas Ohio State did have a turnover. They threw an interception. Despite the great stats that C.J. Stroud had, if you watch that game or even go and watch the highlights of that game, he just did not always look confident and did not always make the right decision. And I think, one of the things we said was that they were weak at quarterback play, and that was going to be a big question mark. Now, it's hard to say someone that threw for 484 yards was weak at the position, but whatever the indication was, whatever the reason was, huge credit to Oregon for coming in. And, there's been now 2 different games this year that have made the Pac-10 look like they're going to have some potential contenders on the national scene this year.
Oregon was impressive. I'll start with a stat on the game. Ohio State was 8 of 20 on third and fourth down. They turned the ball over on downs 3 times, I think, deep in Oregon territory, and there's your game right there. But the more concerning thing, and this goes back to last year during the playoff when they were exposed brutally in that game, is this team has a defensive problem,
Yeah.
and one that they have to figure out if they want to compete for a national title. You and I talked about when Ryan Day took over, we weren't sure how the hire would go. It's always weird when you just promote somebody. It worked out with Lincoln Riley, albeit with some growing pains on the defense side of the ball, but he kind of inherited those
I was going to say, I don't know that those
Bob
are
Stoops.
necessarily, that's been a lingering OU problem for a while.
And so I saw somebody say on Saturday that before we anoint Ryan Day as one of the top 5 coaches in college football, we have to see what he can do as far as keeping the defensive staff together. Urban Meyer had a phenomenal staff at Ohio State, and a lot of those guys have since moved on elsewhere. And with it has come some slow, a slow decline, but a decline nonetheless, especially on the defense side of the ball. Ryan Day's a great offensive mind. He's a really good head football coach, but I think we're starting to see some of the concerns that you and I had and some other people had when he took over is can he build and keep a staff that is worthy of a national championship consideration? And if the defense keeps up at this pace, I don't think they are.
No, and honestly, I think about the league, and the only team that I can think of that has proven to be a complete coach and keep an offense and a defense running well despite whoever is a coordinator has been Alabama. Because even Clemson, who is probably your next most dominant team through the last couple of years overall, has had the ability to keep the vast majority of their staff together, and I think that's important. And so, yeah, we'll see. Ohio State definitely has to get better on the defensive side of the ball. It's hard to say that our quarterback threw for 400 plus yards, that we had 3 receivers over 100 yards, that we had this many guys involved, we had this many rushing yards, and we just couldn't get it done. Sounds like an Oklahoma story, when you think about it. So we'll see what they do, if they can bounce back. As always, the best thing about that loss for them is that it did come out of conference, and so they can potentially, get things righted, get in conference play, sweep in the conference, and hopefully, get a rematch against Oregon if they make it there, or just perform better against whoever they do play.
That's enough about Ohio State. I'm getting
Always.
sick of it.
Too much.
I will stay in the Big Ten and go with a winner from the Big Ten, though. Iowa.
Okay.
The first ever ranked matchup between Iowa State and Iowa finally happened, and it wound up being the top 10 matchup in the good old state of Iowa. They also hosted College Game Day for the second time in as many years.
Impressive.
Iowa State was the favorite at home and was finally looking to assert its dominance over their hated in-state rival. Iowa came out and put a stop to that early. They beat Iowa State 27-17 in a game that really did not even seem that close. I will give Iowa State credit for their defense. Iowa's only able to generate 173 total yards of offense. That's not good. Including 67 yards on the ground at 1.7 yards per carry.
Wow.
Not good at all. But it doesn't matter when you turn the ball over 4 times, including twice in your own half, one of those being a scoop and score. The Cyclones had a chance to finally get their first win since 2014. This vaunted game.
That's impressive. Do they play every year?
They played every year except for last year because the Big Ten didn't want to play anybody. They didn't even want to play football, and then everybody else did, so they decided they had to play. So, but all but 1 year. So I think it's 6 straight now, 7 straight for the Cyclones there, or for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah,
I get them backwards. So this was their chance to get that first win since 2014, and potentially make that case to join the Big Ten, which I guess we should touch on later on what's going on with the Big 12.
True.
However, it was more of the same for the Cyclone faithful as Matt Campbell continues to inexplicably struggle in September.
Yeah, amazing. Guy gets better.
I just don't get that. Like, typically in September, it's cupcakes and maybe one conference game, maybe a couple conference games. And I just can't fathom this one.
Yeah.
And then he always beats Oklahoma in September or early October, right? So like
Gotta love
it makes no sense. Whatever.
Yeah. Can't explain it.
Great
Well,
coach, can't coach in September.
No doubt. All right. Speaking of Oklahoma, hey, this is my podcast. I can bring up Oklahoma if I want, even if they beat up on a team like Western Carolina. So,
Hey, you gotta praise them when they do well.
Listen, we all knew I was harsh. I think that's why they got things in gear. They listened.
They listened. Yes.
Big OU audience. We're big in Norman. I think everyone knew that Oklahoma was going to come in with a chip on their shoulder and something to prove in week 2 after almost losing in week 1 to Tulane. Now, unfortunately for Western Carolina, that put them in the crosshairs, and they were the recipients of that Sooner correction. And so, it was a beatdown from start to finish. So, with the exception of taking a knee on a one-play drive to just get to halftime, OU scored on their first 11 drives, 9 of those being touchdowns, 2 of those being field goals.
Any over 50 yards?
I don't know. Spencer Rattler was 20 for 26 with 5 touchdowns, and he did not take a single snap after halftime. So only played in the first half. 13 different receivers caught a pass. Only one of them failed to get at least 10 yards in that completion. And they had 279 yards rushing, and it was just your standard 76-0 beatdown. So they exercised some demons. They worked things out. They went to prove that they could do this. They didn't lose the flash in the pan. Something was going on there that they had to work out. They get Nebraska this week though, so that should be a really fun matchup. With our luck, with my luck, I should say. What we're going to do is we're going to see the similar thing of this Texas-Arkansas kind of a reunion of a old conference matchup, and that's what we're going to see. Nebraska is going to somehow come and make a statement win. Scott Frost will get a 20-year extension and something ridiculous like that. But for right now, all is well in the world of the Sooners. They got to be happy on Twitter and Facebook for at least a little bit, and we'll see what happens moving on in the season because Like some of these other teams that we're talking about in Ohio State and others, they've got to get the defense figured out.
I'm sure they were complaining about something.
Oh, yeah, we find something. Don't worry.
And here's the thing, right? You struggled against Tulane. You beat Western Carolina. None of that matters. You're 2-0. So everything's still in your power. That's one thing. That's one thing that I sat back after the Texas game, and it was ugly, and it was not pretty, and I did not enjoy it. But you lost to Arkansas. It's not a fun statement to make. Doesn't really affect your season anyway.
Right.
They've really had obviously your goal was always the national championship. They had no realistic goal of the national championship. You wanted to be in the Big 12 title game. All of that's still in front of you.
Yeah, 100%.
My second winner, LASIK eye surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Jameis Winston is known for a number of things, both on and off the field. His stealing crab legs at Florida State, his national championship and Heisman winning season at Florida State as well. His weird eat the W speech thing that he did, whatever that was. His 30 and 30 season where he threw 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. But this offseason he made headlines. He announced that he was having LASIK eye surgery back in February. Now the jokes wrote themselves on this one. Everybody pointed to all of his interceptions and all of this other stuff, but it looks like he might get the last laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Winston on Sunday was 14 of 20 for 148 yards and 5 touchdowns with 0 interceptions in the Saints' 38-3 drubbing of the Packers. ESPN gave Winston a QBR of 92.5, that's out of 100, and a quarterback rating of 130.8 out of 158.3. His counterpart there for the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, was scored at 13.5 and 36.8 respectively. So maybe Aaron Rodgers should schedule an appointment this week?
Yeah. Boy, not only Jameis Winston having an amazing outing and doing a great thing, but boy, when you especially compare that to what Rodgers did. He got benched.
Yeah.
Who would have thought Aaron Rodgers is getting benched?
Yeah, for It was ugly. It was truly ugly, you know. And here's the thing about Winston, man. You know, he threw a lot of picks, but maybe he just saw a guy open and threw it, and he didn't know if it was his guy
Yeah,
or the other
that's
guy.
right. I couldn't quite tell what color that uniform was. It didn't look good. Um,
That dude's wide open. It's the free safety,
of
Jameis.
course it was. What are you doing? No, incredible performance, and I know that makes Face Esquire a happy fella because he is a Saints fan and was
Don't sleep on the
lauding
Saints.
lauding them in the preseason. So,
Don't
and
sleep on the Saints.
he was active in our Discord already today, claiming that old Jameis was going to be MVP. So we'll
Hey,
see if that pans out. But
you mentioned Ryan Day's first loss as a head coach,
yeah,
regular season. Trevor Lawrence lost his first game since high school,
I
middle
saw that
school,
first regular
ever.
season game ever to lose. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
maybe he lost in PB or something, but since like he never lost a high school regular season game, a college regular season game, and
yeah.
now
It
he's in
was.
the NFL. Lost his first, so that's crazy.
I'm betting he loses at least 11 more this year.
Well, I don't know if it'll be 11, but it'll be quite a few, I bet. Got some good banner going on in the chat. I don't know if you've seen this or not. Just do a Google image search for Mark Davis real quick.
Oh, I know Mark Davis.
That's
It
the
is
worst haircut I've ever
bad.
seen in my life. And to answer the question of who has the worst haircut, Gundy from Oklahoma State or Mark Davis, the owner of the
Here,
Raiders, it's Mark
here's
Davis.
here's the thing about Mark Davis is he owns an NFL team.
Yeah.
He can pay for anything he wants done, and this
He
is what
could
he chooses to
he
do.
could he could buy Fabio's hair, and I don't mean buy hair like
Oh,
Fabio's. I mean he could
actual.
literally like pay
Uh,
Fabio to have his hair removed and placed on his head with
um,
no issue.
I'll let you do your next winner or loser, and then
Okay.
I want you to look up Bob Stoops' current hair dye job that he's got going on
Oh
for the
no.
Fox Game Show.
Oh
Oh
no.
my, it is.
It's not good.
It's bad, man.
All right. I'm jumping to losers. I think we're ready for. I think we're ready to talk about a couple
Yeah,
of
Mark
losers.
Davis gets you there
Yeah, that's right.
for two reasons: that haircut and the Raiders. Sorry.
So I mentioned earlier that there's been a couple of teams in the Pac-12 that are giving the conference a little bit of national attention. We saw it last week when UCLA beat LSU. That was an incredible win for them. Maybe LSU is not what they need to be, but again, no one expected that to happen. We've already talked extensively today about Oregon beating up on Ohio State and getting that win, and that's huge. But for losers, I got to name the rest of the Pac-12. So other than the Week 1 UCLA win over LSU and this Week 2 thing, things have not been going well for the Pac-12. Texas A&M beat Colorado this week. I know it was narrowly, so don't go getting all on your high horse, A&M. But still, that was a game that the Pac-12 could have made another statement kind of win,
Well,
and they failed to do so.
and lost their starting quarterback early too.
Right. Um, BYU improved to 2-0 with a win over Utah. TCU beat Cal. And then perhaps, the most impactful one, it was a conference game, but Stanford just wipes the floor with USC, beating them 42-28.
They're getting
Knocking,
drubbed by
yeah,
Kansas State last week.
yeah. And so they just completely knocked USC out of being the contender that we thought, or not necessarily we thought, but that several thought that USC might be able to be this year. Now, when I initially wrote this note, that was where my note ended. But in the interim hours from when I wrote this note this afternoon, I get to add in the fact that USC, after that drumming that they took from Stanford, decided they were going to go ahead and fire their coach, Clay Helton, who just signed an extension or had 2 more years on his contract at least, and now he's going to be owed a $10 million buyout. Now, we didn't really break down coaches this year in our preseason podcast, but if you go back and listen to our last time that we broke down coaches, both you and I were very low on Helton and really didn't think that he was the long-term solution at USC, and so whereas I'm not surprised that he lost his job, I'm a little shocked that it came this early into the season, and we'll see what USC does. But yeah, outside of those two teams in the Pac-12, they're not looking great as a conference right now. More of the same. They've had a lot more disappointing losses than they've had exhilarating wins.
I don't understand the point. I am the biggest Clay Helton hater on this show. I've hated it 2 years ago. I harped on the fact that he would be fired by Thanksgiving. They didn't do that. They turned around and did stupid things because he beat somebody random. He's not a good coach. You should have fired him 2 years ago. You didn't. That's fine. Why fire him 2 weeks into the season? What does that? Who can you go hire right now? No one is leaving their school to come to your school unless it's an FCS school, in which case you are going to be laughed out of Southern Cal. It makes no sense to me. What? It's going to hurt recruiting,
Mm-hmm.
and they're recruiting well. They're not, it's not like they're struggling the recruiting trail. They're losing all these games. They're 1-1. They had an ugly loss to Stanford, but it's not like Stanford was a directional school, So I just don't get that. Again, I'm all for firing Clay Helton. I've been there for 2 years, but you don't fire him week 2 for no reason. I'm going to build on your loser here.
Okay.
Washington. I had him as a loser last week. I was doing my notes today and just felt the need to leave him there because what did they do to deserve to move out? They opened the season with an embarrassing home loss to Montana, where they managed 7 points. Had a chance to redeem themselves this week. They traveled Ann Arbor. They faced Michigan. They get to build on that. Oregon beats Ohio State. They can really just punch the Big Ten in the mouth this week and take over their place in the power rankings of conferences. And they did not redeem themselves. Washington's offense sputtered once again. They scored 10 points this week. Improvement, 7 to 10. Quarterback play was a little better. Dylan Morris threw for nearly 300 yards. But the run game was brutal again. They combined for 50 yards on 34 carries. Meanwhile, the vaunted Husky defense gave up 343 yards rushing. Not total, rushing.
Wow.
Blake Corum ran for 171 yards and 3 scores, while Hassan Haskins added 155 more yards on 27 carries. Michigan threw the ball 15 times for a whopping 44 yards and scored 31 points. Is Jimmy Lake next? I mean, how do you survive this? I mean, you lose to Montana and then just get blown out against Harbaugh?
Are they even trying?
You could fool me that they aren't.
No, that makes sense. All right, my last loser for the week is Florida State. It was interesting because if you watched the week 1 matchup between Florida State and Notre Dame, you thought, wow, Florida State might be like a really good team this year, because we were kind of expecting that. Some people were kind of expecting that Notre Dame, was going to be a good team as well. We're a little less certain about that after seeing them in week 2.
Toledo.
Struggled heavily against Toledo, but week 1, we're thinking Florida State, they might be the dark horse contender. They narrowly lost to Notre Dame in overtime, and they had the quarterback who was never expected to play the game again coming in to lead the comeback. It was just like this great feeling, and even though they didn't get the win, you're sitting there thinking, wow, maybe Florida State can build off that momentum and really do something this year. And so this was supposed to be the game where they worked out some kinks because they were playing the Gamecocks and not the South Carolina ones, the Jacksonville State ones. So this should have been just the cupcake, work out the kinks, get better, figure out what you're doing at quarterback, etc., etc. And that's just not what happened at all. Florida State led 17-7 with 10 minutes left in the game, and they had the ball at the Jacksonville State 1-yard line. This game is over, except for the fact that there was a turnover on downs as opposed to any points being scored there. Why you wouldn't just kick the field goal when it got to 4th, I don't know. I guess it was 4th and 1 from the 1. You just went for it, but ego. So not only do they turn over on downs, but then they allow Jacksonville State to drive down the field 97 yards and score a touchdown. Now still, you're Florida State, and there's not a lot of time left on the clock. You go out there and you get, we'll say, 3 first downs, and you've won this game. And you're Florida State, and you're playing a non-FBS opponent. You're telling me you can't just pound that ball and get a couple of first downs? Let me tell you, they could not pound that ball and get a couple of first downs, because with less than a minute and a half, about 90, 91 seconds left in the game, they're forced to punt the ball and give the ball back to their competitor, who starts to drive and gets themselves in a position where with 6 seconds left in the game, The ball is on the 41-yard line, and Jacksonville State runs I guess you call it a Hail Mary, but it didn't actually have enough air or power to get to the end zone.
It was 20 yards short of the end zone.
Yeah, but I guess we call it. I guess it's a Hail Mary technically. So he lines up throw and he throws the ball, and for some inexplicable reason that maybe someone wiser than me can understand, Florida State's like, oh, we don't need to run the prevent defense here. Like, how many teams run the prevent defense way too early and it burns them, and then you get this position where it's 6 seconds left in the game. At most, you have 2 plays left in this game. You can't let a defender get behind you, and we don't run prevent. And so what happens is there's a wide open, in essence, receiver who only has 2 players that can potentially tackle him. He makes one cut to the middle of the field. Those guys are now out of position. He picks up an easy block, and he scores an incredibly easy touchdown. And Florida State loses for the first time to a non-FBS opponent since 1959. Not a great way to continue your season there, Florida State.
We've harped on how bad Florida State's been the last few years. If they're worse than Tennessee, all of that. And it seems like they might finally be turning the corner, right? They hired a real football coach, not named Willie Taggart, and looked like things might be going well. But I just, like you said, how do you run that? How do you not run a defense better than what they ran? He can't throw it 70 yards. There's no way he's getting to the end zone. So just put 5 guys back there close and just say, okay. I mean, worst case scenario, what are they going to do? Throw it underneath and step out of bounds? Okay, now they take a shot at the end zone? Congratulations, you're already in position. I just don't understand.
Like, worst case scenario, they step out of bounds or use their last timeout with 1 second left and kick the tying field goal to send you in overtime, and you just win.
No, 4.
Oh yeah,
they can't tie you. They have to score a touchdown. To score a touchdown. It makes no sense. That's a guy that should be fired week 2, just for that. The defense coordinator, just do it. My second loser is the defense in the Arkansas State and Memphis game. The 2 teams combined for 1,360 yards of offense. Both had exactly 680 yards. It was a 55-50 Memphis win. Here's the fun fact. The teams punted 12 times.
Wow.
So they scored all these points, and they punted 12 times.
That's impressive.
Arkansas State had 2 quarterbacks playing the game. James Blackman was 19 of 28 for 306 yards and 4 touchdowns, while Lane Hatcher was 23 of 38 for 276 yards and a touchdown. That's a combined 42 of 66 for 582 yards and 5 touchdowns. They added 98 yards on the ground on 32 attempts and another touchdown. Memphis, on the other hand, was a little more balanced. Starting quarterback Seth Hennigan was 22 of 33 for 417 yards and 5 touchdowns. And their starting running back carried the ball 18 times for 191 yards and 2 more scores. So overall, the Tigers rushed for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that is just offense. We've watched Butch Jones coach team, and it looks about right.
Yeah, no doubt. Impressive stuff. All right, hit us with your last loser.
I will. I mentioned Butch Jones, who's former Tennessee Falls coach. I'll keep it in the great state of Tennessee and go a little bit west to the Tennessee Titans. They opened their season against the Arizona Cardinals. Pretty good football team, right? Everybody expected the Cardinals to be pretty good. Really good offense. So I expected the game to be high scoring, and it was for one team. The Cardinals routed the Titans in their home stadium, 38-13, behind a phenomenal performance from star linebacker Chandler Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Jones accounted for 6 tackles overall, including 5 sacks, 3 of which came in the first quarter.
Ooh, no, it's not set a good pace for the rest of the game.
No. The Cardinals forced 3 Tennessee turnovers on the day, which was more than enough for a Kyler Murray-led offense.
Kyler Murray, by the way, famous quarterback from OU.
Yes. Murray threw for nearly 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, added another score on the ground. The most surprising stat to me, though, was Derrick Henry's final line. He finished the day with 58 yards on 17 carries, 3.4 yards per carry for Derrick Henry.
Wow.
That is his lowest rushing total since all the way back in September of 2019 when he was held to just 44 yards on 17 carries against the Jaguars. Not great for the Titans.
There were a lot of Tennessee natives really looking forward to the Titans doing something
Man,
impressive
I heard all about
because
it all offseason.
just especially after Tennessee lost, in college football, they were really like hanging their hat on. Well, at least we have the Titans. At least we have the Titans. And then I saw a lot of sadness. Shout out to great friend of the pod, Sally, my aunt. Tier 1 subscription. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. We appreciate that so much. Well, speaking of the University of Tennessee, let's hit it really quick. We don't want to spend a lot of time here, but give me your thoughts from week 2 and what you're expecting from week 3.
So the biggest takeaway in week 2 was progress. They didn't get the win, but they played without. They lost their starting quarterback in the game. They were without their starting running back before the game. Their backup running back was injured in the first half. Their best wide receiver went down early. Their starting center did not play. They're still without arguably their best pass rusher. And they were in a one-score game, in a game in which they had 13 penalties for 130 yards.
Yeah.
Now, people are harping on the officials this week and all of that. It doesn't matter. You shot yourselves in the foot too many times for a young, inexperienced team to win that game. A good team, an experienced team, can probably overcome some of those things. This team has to do everything right to try to be there, and they did everything wrong, pretty much. But encouragement in the sense that they fought, they came back. If you take away the second quarter, which I know you can't do in football, they win that game easily. They gave up 27 points in the second quarter out of the 41 that they gave up. So they gave up 14 points otherwise. This is a team that looks like if they can just stop making the silly mistakes, which I know is hard. It's a Tennessee team. We've seen that for years. If they can stop with the silly mistakes, this team could sneak up on somebody. And there's wins on the rest of the schedule. It's not like we're about to hit Murderer's Row by any means. You get Florida in a couple weeks, and if Emory Jones plays the majority of that game is winnable. I mean, he's not setting the world on fire. Again, I don't think they win it, but it's winnable. The only 2 games unwinnable on the schedule are Alabama, Georgia. Ole Miss has looked good. I probably would favor Ole Miss, but it's at home. I mean, this team, if they can get it going in the right direction, if they can get things rolling, I think this team could be pretty good. Milton's injury might be a
blessing in disguise.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they looked like a different team with Hooker. I would like to see them scheme an offense for Hooker. I think Heupel knows how to.
It's a family-friendly podcast.
Sorry. I think Heupel can do a good job if they can get the right offense for the new starting quarterback. Heupel spoke today. He did not name a starter this week. It's Tennessee Tech. They should both play. They should both put up a lot of numbers.
Right.
But I personally would like to see Hooker play the rest of the season, or at least get the nod this week.
Yeah. I agree with everything you just said, and I don't want to spend too much more time talking about it, but I saw a lot of negativity from Vol fans for that loss. One of our good friends said it's frustrating because you expect to lose the games that you're supposed to lose, the Alabamas, the Georgias, etc., but that was a winnable game, so it hurts to lose that game. And I understand where that person's coming from and where that mentality in the Vol fan base is coming from, but in my opinion, that's actually the game that I take so much more encouragement out of than even if you get close to like a Georgia and you like only lose by a touchdown or something like that, or a couple years ago we were right in the driver's seat to beat Alabama. We could have if things gone our way, and obviously you want that win, don't get me wrong, but that's almost more of that team probably was overlooking you as opposed to you really came in and like beat a team you were supposed to. Not that you don't want to win that game, but what I'm saying with this game is all those things you mentioned were so true. They were down their starting quarterback. They were by the end of the game they were to their third string running back. They had just all these positions out, and it was a team team that both you and I said this is a really even matchup, and we're actually, both of us took Pitt last week, so we thought this was a team that if you matched up Tennessee as good as they were supposed to be, minus a couple of the injuries that we had already known about, against Pitt, we still thought Pitt was a better team. And so for Tennessee to be in that game the way they were with even more injuries, and as you mentioned, is shooting themselves in the foot, which is something you can and have to clean up, I was actually impressed with how Tennessee played that game. I enjoyed watching how Tennessee play that game, and I think in so many other seasons, Tennessee would have come out of halftime and just turn that into a 21-point loss. We would have been out of it. The stadium would have been empty, and that would have been that. But we saw a team continue to fight through some adversity. And yes, they made mistakes, both the players and the coaching staff. We both disagree with that fourth down play call. I mean, we're not saying it was perfect on their end. We want better. We want more. But I left that game feeling pretty proud of Tennessee, and like you said, feeling pretty good about what they have going on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about.
Team also only has 71 scholarship players this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
30
everything's going
lost
against
in the portal. Yeah. As for
And-
this coming week, they're playing Tennessee Tech. Really quick, Tennessee Tech lost 52
yeah,
to
they're
14 versus Samford. They lost 26 to 0 versus Furman. So obviously, this is barring some kind of crazy disaster. This is an easy win for Tennessee. It's a way to go and get some secondary players some reps. It's a good way, like you said, not to get injured. And I'll predict a Tennessee victory. I'll say 42-6.
I think they're going to open up the offense this week. I think you're going to see closer to 60 points.
Okay.
I'm going to go with a 55 to 10.
Okay.
I think they're tired of hearing about this offense not getting it done. I think they'll, not to say they're going to intentionally light up the scoreboard, but I think you might see an extra drive or two out of the starters.
Well,
just
not that they'll have the ability to do the
feel
same thing that Oklahoma just did, but I think we'll see the same mentality. Let's just go out and open it up, play, get you feeling confident,
shut some people up.
Yeah,
it's feel good going into Gainesville the next week.
All right, that's our eye on Tennessee. We've got a couple of other things to talk about here. Pick five. Want to do that real quick, or you want to go outside the stadium first?
Let's go outside the stadium. I'm excited for Bishop.
Give us a great update on this wonderful story.
So Bishop Sycamore is the school that doesn't exist, right? So Manti Te'o's girlfriend played here. All of those jokes. So I thought the story was funny. Stopped really paying attention to it. I was actually listening to a podcast as an NBA podcast, but they were talking about it today. It's from a couple weeks back. So their coach was fired. I think I don't know if we've touched on that here, but I know we've talked about it in the text. He had an arrest warrant out for writing bad checks. So he apparently had been writing these bad checks for years. He had warrants out. Here is an actual quote from the new head coach of Bishop Sycamore. "We do not offer curriculum," Jackson said. "We are not a school. That's not what Bishop Sycamore is. And I think that's what the biggest misconception about us was, and that was our fault. Because that was a mistake on paperwork." Yeah, you claim to be a high school football team, and you're not a school. Oh, and here's the other thing that I started to tell you earlier, but held. They're not even high schoolers. This is a bunch of JUCO rejects that are playing. That is described as a post-grad football academy.
Oh.
These are college kids or older playing against high schoolers and getting run out of the stadium.
Oh, no. Oh, I feel so bad for them now, kind of.
Jackson said they will not file the paperwork to declare themselves as a school for the current academic year, and that whoever did so last year did it before he arrived. So here's my question. If you're a school that doesn't exist, and you're a football team that doesn't tie to a school, who fires the head coach? How does somebody get fired by someone who doesn't exist?
Yeah, who makes those calls?
It's all right, you're out today.
Well, I'm out. I'm firing myself. There's so many things wrong with this story.
It gets weirder.
How? It's weird already.
So Bishop Sycamore is run by these people who 3 years ago started a school called Christians of Faith Academy in Columbus with a football team serving as its lone public face. They've done this twice.
Oh, my goodness. It's got to be making them money, right?
The school did not appear to have a legitimate physical address. It's unclear what schooling actually took place, and it was run by a similar cast of characters who have been involved with Bishop Sycamore, including Roy Johnson, who went on to become the head football coach at the current school before he was fired earlier this week. This is from USA Today article. They've done this twice, and I assume I guess at this point,
keep doing it again.
It's run its course, and everybody's going to know, but it's hilarious to me.
They'll just name it something else, and they'll move out to the other coast, and they'll do it again.
But they create fake names, Christians of Faith Academy, Bishop Sycamore, which, by the way, kudos to them. That's a pretty good sounding, that could be a real school. Oh, there is no Biship Sycamore.
No, yeah, there is none, yeah. Someone was like, no, that means overseer, not actual bishop.
No. They named it after somebody that doesn't exist, which is fitting for a school that doesn't exist. And they now have a coach who was fired because he was writing bad checks, who's been replaced by this story is so weird. I will continue reading and we will update in the future.
It's 100% got to be a cash grab. Right?
The best part is they're not high schoolers.
Yeah, and they're
it's just random grown men that are like, we're going to go play high school football this week.
Dude, imagine I'm going to go play for that team and just play on the line. Hey, guys.
It's like
if you let me sack the quarterback this time, I'll buy you beer.
We all know the people that never left high school, right? They're still like, well, I could go back to high school and we could do things. These guys did it.
I would totally dominate in high school football in that way. Yeah, you're 28. Of course you would. Except they're not.
But they lost 58-6.
So
hilarious.
For real, though, here are the things that I'm interested to know, and I hope we find these things out. One, did teams like ING Academy know that this was that kind of team? And then two, these teams that schedule them, because ING Academy is wanting to play the best, or I don't know, they're building their schedule the way they want to, right? Because they're not a typical high school, they're not in a typical conference. They otherwise are traveling across the country to some of the best teams out there. So I have to wonder, do they schedule this and say, hey, we're going to pay you money to play you? And if that's the case, that's kind of sus if they're playing a team that's not a high school team and paying them money to go do it. I don't know how that works out. That's something I want someone to ask and find out. But yeah, that's some fishy stuff.
Weird,
Sheesh.
man. But that's it for this week. We will. I will do more research and update more next week and have a little more time to dig in. But just wanted to update you on the latest of what I have found out.
I love it. All right, let's pick a couple of games real quick.
All right.
I'm not going to do it in the order that's written there because I think there are better games to pick at the end.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'll start with this: Virginia Tech versus West Virginia.
Virginia Tech, they beat North Carolina. West Virginia is not very good.
Yeah, West Virginia is underperforming for sure. I take Virginia Tech as well. Auburn versus Penn State. Get a little bit of cross Power 5 matchup here. Two great teams.
Auburn big.
Auburn big, okay. I think it's closer than that. I don't think it's a big win, but I think Auburn does get the win. I think the offense...
I think Auburn can keep up. Auburn struggled with... Or I don't think Penn State can keep up.
Yeah. I think Penn State's defense will keep it under wraps, at least in the first half, maybe. So, I say, you say big. I don't know what you define as big. I could see it being like a 21-7, 21-10. If you're defining that as big, then I'll say big.
I'm saying 17-plus win. Here's my thing. Penn State's defense looks great against awful Big Ten offenses. So
It's fair.
And, I think they've broken 60 both weeks Auburn has. Now, they haven't played anybody, but still.
Yeah,
the offense is rolling.
I'll say that I could see a 2-touchdown win. I don't know if I'd go more than that personally. All right, Michigan State versus Miami.
Miami's horrible.
Yeah, they're bad.
Horrible. They got just run out of the stadium by Alabama. Appy State tried to beat them and probably could have, would have, should have, and they're gonna kill. Michigan State's been pretty good actually.
Okay. Yeah, I got Michigan State as well. All right, the two, in my opinion, bigger matchups, Oklahoma versus Nebraska.
Give me... No, I'm just kidding. You can't pick Nebraska. It's Oklahoma.
Well,
it's Oklahoma. It might be closer than you hope, but it's not going to be... You're not going to have to sweat it out. You might not love the final score. You're not going to have to sweat it out.
Obviously, my heart and brain are both picking OU for obvious reasons, but,
Your PTSD is telling you no.
I just know that this is a game that OU could lose for no other reason than because they're not supposed to. And then the last one, maybe the best matchup on the slate this week, and that is Alabama versus Florida.
Give me Bama. I haven't looked great yet, but Anthony Richardson being hurt worries me a little bit. If he's healthy, this game is interesting. I still pick Bama. It's interesting if he's a full go, but I also don't trust that Dan Mullen's going to give him the job. So
Yeah.
if Emory Jones is going to play, and I have hated on him enough this podcast, but I'll give one more shot. Emory Jones is terrible. Give me Bama.
Mark it down. You heard it here first. Alabama gets the win.
See what you did there. You played it up.
I played it up a little bit.
And then you didn't.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm going to unmute it just for this.
Here we go. By the way, if you're listening to the podcast now, join us live on Twitch, twitch.tv/PastorNick86 every Monday night. And you can see this awesome graphic that's going up on the screen right now. Yes, my friends, it is time for our Mount Rushmore segment. It's a time where we break down our top 4, maybe plus a couple of honorable mentions about some random topic that we so ever decide. Stick around. This is going to be a good one, I think. Or maybe a terrible one. Hey, I don't care. Tonight, we're going to give our Mount Rushmore of date night restaurant venues / locations. And we're going to give this list to you because it's football season and you are probably asking your significant other for a little bit of extra TV time to watch your favorite team or just to binge football because you've missed it. And you need to probably give them a little something back. Take them out for a nice dinner. Friday night's a great time because you're only missing high school football. So we're going to help you out a little bit, give you a couple of venues of spots that you can go to take them out. Stevie, give us your Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, high school football or a really bad Pac-12 game that you don't have to watch.
True.
So I've got to preface this by saying that my wife and I don't do restaurant date nights typically.
Okay.
We will do more of a...
Hey, whoa. Family-friendly podcast.
We will go to like bowling or back before the pandemic. Our big thing was we tried to go at least every other week to the Cinnabar, which is the big movie theater restaurant at West Town Mall. More of that kind of thing. But you said date night restaurants. I came up with some restaurants because, I like to eat.
That's what I said I told you to do.
Yeah, well, I like to eat. Everybody likes to eat. So, right. Number 4, it's a local one. It's in Sevier County. I don't know if you've been. It's very good. I would highly recommend taking Kayla. It's called The Local Goat. It's a steakhouse kind of place. Kind of a variety on the menu. They have, and you're not a drinker, but for those who are, they have like all kinds of different alcohols, beers, whiskeys, everything you could ever want. The food is amazing. They had a like a beer cheese pretzel appetizer thing that was just really, really good. I'm not a huge beer cheese guy, but it was amazing. My wife loves it. She's already requested that we go there for her birthday. So I will be making sure I get that done. But Local Goat, very good. Number 3, Drake's. It's a sports bar here in Knoxville. It is a nice kind of little cheaper way for a date night, but it's a fun place. More bar type food, so like sliders, burgers, things like that. But we like to go occasionally on a weeknight where you're not spending a fortune on a weeknight date, but also getting some good food in. Number 2, and this is kind of more what I meant when I said we do more outings. We like to go to Market Square, walk around, and pick a place there to eat. So there's several restaurants. Tupelo Honey's fairly chain restaurant type. Myrtle's Chicken and Beer is very good. It's fried chicken. Not Watson's, kind of a sandwichy kind of West Coast style, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Stock and Barrel's a burger place. So we like to go downtown, hit the Market Square, walk around, and find somewhere to eat down there.
Okay.
Hit the Cruise Farm location downtown afterwards for some ice cream. The number 1 is Longhorn Steakhouse. If we're going out to eat, we're going to spend a little money on some dinner. I've stayed away from the super pricey ones. We don't like to spend that much on dinner anyways, but trying to give everybody some options here if they want to take our advice and go to a restaurant. We stayed away from the Ruth's Chris, or at least I did, some of those places. So Longhorn, for me, I've never been to Ruth's Chris, but I've had some of the higher end steak places, and
Okay.
I'm a bang for your buck steak guy.
Sure.
So I acknowledge the fact that there are better steaks, but I have to pay a whole lot more money for them. Longhorn to me is the best bang for my buck steak that you can buy at a restaurant. The price is not outrageous, and the food is really good. It's a perfect match,
Perfect match.
and you
Love to hear
can't beat
it.
their they call it bang bang shrimp, whatever they call it.
Okay.
Their shrimp. It's a very good appetizer.
Yeah.
I have two honorable mentions. One is
Okay.
Zalate, new Mexican restaurant over here on Clinton Highway. We've had it once. It was good. I couldn't put it in the top four because I've only been once.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed it. We will be going back. And then First Watch, we go there a lot for brunch. Wasn't date night, but it's a date place.
Date place, yeah.
So we
Maybe
love
get
First
that
Watch.
brunch in before a noon kickoff on Saturday.
That's right. That's right. You go hit your First Watch and then go home and watch your
I gotta
favorite
admit,
team.
I've only been to
win.
First Watch once, and I was
Okay.
not a First fan.
Okay.
Maybe I need to give it another try, but I just felt like
What did you get?
I feel like I got a biscuit and gravy and a egg, something like
So
that.
their omelets are very good. They have unique pancakes. Like they have like a pumpkin pancake about this time. They do all kinds of different pancakes.
I'm a huge breakfast food fan, but when I go eat breakfast food, I just want like massive quantities of food in front of me.
Okay.
And I feel like that's a place that they're like, ah, yes, welcome. Here's your poached egg with 2/3 of a piece of toast, and here is a bacon crumble that we got off. And I just want to I want to go to the place where I'm like, hi, I want the Super SummerSlam, and they're like, yes, sir. Here are your 82 pancakes, 22 pieces of bacon, grits, hash browns, toast. Like I don't know.
You ordered the wrong thing. I'll tell you that.
I
So
probably did. There's no doubt.
they had this bacon. I'm trying to find it. I'm looking at their
Like a
menu.
maple cured bacon. I
Yes.
think I do remember
Oh
the
my
bacon being good.
gosh.
In fairness, I think I
It
do
is.
remember. But here was the thing. It was like I got like one or two slices. I'm playing. I'm like, no. I need like
$1
six
million
more.
bacon. Let me read
Yeah.
this to you.
Okay.
4 slices of our signature hardwood smoked bacon, baked with brown sugar, black pepper, cayenne, and a maple syrup drizzle.
I mean,
There's only yeah, and so you get 4 pieces of it. That's just plenty
for
as
how
a
much?
side.
For how much?
I don't know. It doesn't tell me that.
All right. I'm just saying. I need
It's
eight.
good. You
I
need
need
to
8
go.
of those orders. All right. Let's get to
You
the
got the
better
wrong
list. Let's get to the better list. I kept mine to mostly more nationally recognized chains so that our listeners from outside of the Knoxville area, you got some places to go. I will fully admit that that there are going to be local places to your neighborhood, to your community, that will blow most of these places away. So find that place and enjoy it. But hey, I can't recommend Johnny's Hole in the Wall for those of you that live in Nantucket because I've never been there. But here we go. Here are a couple with a couple of regional one, or at least one regional one in. That's my kind of default. Find your local place. Number 4 for me is the Cheesecake Factory. Now,
Okay.
in my opinion, the menu is way too big, and when you have a menu that literally has to be spiral bound because there's too many pages, at some point your food quality suffers. Yet somehow, Cheesecake Factory, I've been able to find 2 or 3 different things on the menu that always live up to my taste bud expectations.
I've
So
never
I
had
don't,
a bad thing.
yeah, but I don't venture much. I know about 3 things that I like. 2 of them are pasta dishes, and I don't even remember what the other one is because I usually land on those pasta dishes. But they're really good. So, I lean there. But ultimately, if you're going to Cheesecake
Good.
Factory, you're primarily going because you know you're either eating dessert there or you're getting some to go, and it's hard to beat Cheesecake Factory cheesecake because of the great options that they have. So,
I'll tell
Cheesecake
you.
Factory definitely makes the list for me.
I'll tell you the cheat code there. Go to Drake's for dinner. Go pick up cheesecake. Take it home.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with that. That sounds good. Number 3 for me is Texas Roadhouse.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a louder environment. You're not going to get that kind of romantic date night, but it is less expensive than Longhorn Steakhouse, which does make an appearance here in a second on my list as well. So it's a little bit less expensive, and like you, I just like good steak. Doesn't have to be the fanciest thing. Roadhouse usually puts out a good steak. They've got a good salad. They've got the amazing
chops.
butter and rolls. I need to try them. I just don't venture away from the
Pork chops are
steak.
good. Yeah, pork chops are good.
So
Good baked potato.
yeah, good baked potato. I usually get
That's a key for me. I'll be
got
honest.
rice. Got good rice. I like rice.
Okay.
So
Taking baked potato is the way to go.
hard to beat. So I like that. So number 2 for me is insert your local place that you like, whether it's the hole in the wall or maybe just the regional chain. For me, for Tennessee, I put Aubrey's on the list. They've gone down a little bit in my estimation the last 6 months or so, but they're still hanging on because they do have a unique enough menu that I can find something that I like. They have a really good burger that I like if I'm trying to go kind of inexpensive and I just want something basic. They've got a couple of pasta dishes that are really good. They've got the secret menu like the burrito and some other stuff that's just phenomenal to get. So they still stay on my list. So find your local place. If I was in Oklahoma City, my local place for the region anyway is Ted's Escondido. It's the Mexican restaurant out there. Oklahoma Mexican beats Mexican in Tennessee so severely it's not even funny. There's no such thing as good Mexican in Tennessee when you compare it to even bad Mexican in Oklahoma.
Mexican flapjacks is great.
It's terrible. Anyway, so Ted's Escondido. When I go back to Oklahoma City, I have to find a Ted's or a Ted's-like place. They make their tortillas fresh. They give you queso for free at the table, salsa free at the table. You get a sopapilla at the end for free. Out here in Tennessee, we have to pay for things like queso and those kind of things. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, that's my local place out there. And then number one, like you, Longhorn Steakhouse absolutely makes that number one spot, especially if I'm going to somewhere that is a national chain. It's good food. It's a good environment. It's a little bit quieter environment. So if you want that steak, not overpaying for it, you don't want to go to Roadhouse. You want to go to somewhere a little bit more upscale. Then Longhorn is your place. And although I am typically and traditionally a steak purist, I am usually of the mindset that you don't need to add anything to your steak other than a little bit of seasoning when you're cooking it. I stan the Parmesan crust on those steaks at Longhorn. Holy cow, that stuff is good.
It's not my thing. I prefer a skewer of shrimp with it.
I don't eat shrimp, so...
That's true. See? That's your trade-off.
Yeah.
I can't help but notice that you did not include O'Charlie's.
I did not.
Or Applebee's.
It's like date night. How does it start? I don't remember that. I don't remember the start. Do I have this still pulled up?
I thought you had the song there.
I did have the song, but I closed it because I'm.
I set you up there, and then
you really did. I mean, you probably could have sent me a.
I was full. I thought you were ready, and I was just gonna.
Toss
it to you very, very. I don't know. It was gonna be perfect.
On a date night, no shake, whipped cream on top. Straws one check, cause I got you.
That's it for this episode. I'm just kidding.
Applebee's is terrible. It makes my dishonorable mention. Almost, and I will say this
there for the song.
For the song, because we were talking about that in the pre-show. I will say, honorable mention for me is Chili's for sentimental reasons. Now, don't get me wrong. Chili's goes through these waves where sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's really bad, so you don't know what you're going to get. But
I want my baby back.
I want my baby. Whenever I lived in Texas, there were only 3 restaurants that were open past 6 o'clock at night. And one of those was the Chili. I'm not kidding. I wish I was, but there was one that was super expensive, and then there was one that we went to a lot, and then there was Chili's.
Chili's menu is just outrageously diverse.
It is. So we went literally the first 2 years of my marriage, we ate at Chili's probably once a week. That's where we went for date night, because that was the only place you could go to on date night in Paris, Texas. And so it holds a special place in my heart. When we moved to Tennessee, we literally didn't eat at a Chili's for 2.5 years because we were so burnt out. We go again now occasionally.
The one closest to us is awful. The one out west is not bad. If you're just craving Chili's, go out west. It's pretty good.
It's good chips and salsa.
Chili's. I like Chili's.
Good chips and salsa. I'll take it. And good fajitas, actually. So, yeah. All right, Steven, do you have anything else?
Go try First Watch again, man. Give it a go. I'll even take you, my treat, if you beat me in the pick'em this year. That'll be our bet.
Okay. I think I'm winning so far, so
we're tied.
Well, agree to disagree.
Okay. It's okay. If you beat me, I will take you on a date night brunch.
Ooh.
To First Watch.
2 straws, 1 check.
That's Applebee's, not First Watch.
All right.
For sure. How about one straw, two checks?
Hey, beggars can't be choosers. All right, my friends, this has been Season 3, Episode 7 of the Sports Corner Podcast. We have broke down Week 2 of the NCAA football season and Week 1 of the NFL. We've talked about fake high schools, the best date spot that you can go to, and so much more. Please catch us live on Twitch every Monday night. You can also catch us on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Either way, thank you for listening. We'll catch you again next week.
Might even let you cuddle after our date.